Hello everyone, once again good morning and welcome Satyajit who is with us from the perspective of 86400, which is as well a Mobileware technologies company. So we'll discuss about some of the part largely on the side of UPI growth and how UPI has been there in the country. But maybe a few questions on the report which soon we are going to launch. So what's the idea behind the report from the perspective of UPI altogether? How does you see this adoption and the growth happening in the UPI?
Sure, thanks Vikrant, and morning everybody. I think one of the key aspects and the thought behind this report was that we didn't see many reports in the market. In fact, I think there's almost none which have been published in the recent past. UPI has been around from 2016. Something which has been groundbreaking. It's done extremely well. Almost India has been known for UPI now. In the past, we've had cash, and therefore we thought that whenever we used to go out and talk about mobility, talk about all sorts of digital payments, we got a lot of responses which said that India is a cash-driven country, right? And obviously that has changed dramatically. So what we wanted to do was to try and emphasize on the various aspects of UPI, how UPI has come in, how it's grown, the various aspects in the ecosystem. It's not only about a B2C or a B2B now, it's actually going across every single aspect of the country. So from urban to rural, etc. So I think that was the whole idea of the report when we thought of it. Obviously, great help from Digital Fifth, a lot of inputs. We had a lot of conversations around it. But I think the base was to see from a cash to cashless, very short duration, hardly 8 years into the making, and UPI has become the largest player in the world, right? We're the largest numbers. So yeah, that was it.
That's great. So we have been discussing about the journey of Mobileware also, right? UPI is something which is coming into the picture for last 7-8 years. But going behind that, how has been the journey for the Mobileware from the perspective of building transaction switches, or be it from the perspective of building the mobile applications? Would you like to share that with some insights on that?
Sure. So I think as an organization, we've been around for a while. So we've been around for about 14, 15, in fact, we completed 15 years. The journey started with having an idea of being mobile first. It was very early on, 2009, 10. We came from a telecom background, so saw a lot of mobility being discussed or propagated in the telecom world. It was very sure that it will propagate into banking in the next few years. And that was the driving force behind Mobileware. Obviously now we are called 86400 because we are far more into switching than into mobility. So that's the 86400 is number of seconds in a day. The journey started with mobility, got into more of mobile banking. So that was our first break with a large cooperative bank, or the largest cooperative bank. We did the digital banking for them. Post that, it was IMPS, which was introduced by NPCI within the mobile banking and for, let's say, a cooperative bank. That's how the journey started in switching. So we had a choice to either integrate with a third party or do it ourselves. We just felt that we had the opportunity to build it, had the background of a platform in telecom also. We had done a lot of platform work, built the IMPS switch. And then on, it was always about being close to NPCI, all the products of NPCI. We had a great opportunity. Back in those days, there were very few companies which were into switching and had a mobile-first approach. And we seemed to be almost one of them, or none of them were having that capability. So we started off, we got the first specifications of UPI, extremely excited to see. We bet big on it. We set it up as the first and foremost option for us. And I think that seems to have paid out. Obviously, it took its own journey. The first 5 years for UPI were about the product stabilization, getting into more banks. The regulatory as well as the country's governance was pushing hard for it, which helped for it to be propagated across all these banks, which is the core of this service, right? Our own journey, obviously, superimposed with that. As we had UPI as a product, IMPS and other products, it just helped us to. There's a little mic problem. Sorry. So it just helped us leverage this capability. Out of the first 6 or 8 banks that launched on the April of 2016, we had 3. We had 2 PSUs and 1 cooperative bank. So that was the head start. And then on, it's been always about trying to leverage any product of NPCI. But as you know, I mean, UPI has been the star or the flagship product in the country. So yeah, that's post-COVID, numbers just went completely crazy. And that has helped us also as an organization grow from like a startup to a fairly significant impact player in the market.
Very true. So maybe talking about the UPI is one of the product which Mobileware is building upon, right? But there are multiple products we were discussing offline as well, which have been built. Would you like to talk about those platforms which would be there on top of the payment system, which will help banks to acquire more customers from the merchant side as well?
Sure. So thanks. I mean, one of the philosophies that we had was not to stay a technology company or a services company on those products. The idea was to try and partner with our customers. The partnership can only grow if you have a little bit of a give and take in that truest sense. So instead of vendor, the idea was to try and make sure that we leverage our technology. We built a platform called Transact, as in TRANSXT. Transact is a product which allows for API banking to take place. We built this way back in 2018-19. The idea was to help our banks monetize these switches, all the switches that come from UPI, IMPS, BPPS, AEPS. You have other products like fixed deposits, mutual funds, insurance, all and anything that you want to plug in. Try and see if you can help them have a single interface for the external world. I think we'd seen it very early that fintechs, partnerships, you will have corporates, business correspondents, anybody and everybody coming into the play and wanting to leverage the technology stack of a bank. The earlier challenges that we saw with banks, and not necessarily for sure, but few of the banks, was that they could not onboard as many customers or merchants or fintechs. They had typically bandwidth issues. And if you see the way technology has changed, the banks have had to leverage and start talking SDKs, APIs, right? I mean, they don't necessarily need to do that. But that became the core of banking as well, as digital banking or as partnerships had started, right? And fintech ecosystem just actually started having a play in their own profitability. So I think Transact became one. It allowed us to give a bill payment to UPI, collect pay to UPI as a TPAP, or anybody who had any interest in leveraging the tech stack of a bank as a regulator, as the one who's allowed to do transactions, became a customer. And then that revenues have really been the backbone of our growth in the last 2 years now. So
that's pretty interesting. But will you be able to talk about some part of, or share some insights on what was the impact of these technologies, right? Because largely, if we see when we talk about simplifying the experiences for the customer, it is far more important to simplify experience in the back end, right? And that definitely gives a growth to overall. What you can say, the payment system altogether. Would you like to share something about that?
yeah, sure. I mean, extension to the same extension of Transact as backend. You know, the heavy lifting has to be done by somebody. If you simplify it, like I'll give you classic examples. You had legacy systems, you had on-prem systems, you had to go on cloud, you had to be scalable, resilient, efficient in that sense. Once that push comes in and the bank is in line with your thought processes or their line, they think exactly similarly. It just is a question of then building those technologies one time, making it scalable, and then exposing these services to anybody and everybody. Make it seamless for their customers. The TAT, the timelines, if they're consistent, it becomes very easy. Right now, what we've seen is, I think from just Riju right here, right? And the biggest difference in a payment gateway was the time to onboard a merchant. I think it's very similar in all of these cases also. If you give your customer, the backend is seamless, it allows you to onboard and doesn't take time, which is one of the most critical time to market, right? Any business wants to try out their idea, it's a fintech, wants to go to market, see how it can be leveraged. I think that's been the backbone of our thought process, that make the backend simple, make it robust, and make it scalable, allow for people to come in their success, we'll find success. So.
Yeah, great. Maybe a last question from the futuristic perspective, right? So there have been a lot of talks about consolidation of services under one umbrella from the perspective of bank side. I mean, if I would like to name it as a consolidation of switches at the bank side. Any thoughts on that from your perspective?
I mean, yeah, we love to see it as a consolidation, right? What we've seen is that there are disparate systems. In case of legacy, you've always had a core banking system, you had an ATM system, and you had connectivities to all of these. NPCI has come up with their own connectivity in terms of a third party. Everybody's connected to that. If you have multiple vendors, multiple products, multiple switches, it does have an impact on generally the APIs are just to go to market for customers, right? So consolidation in a couple of the banks that we are working with, what we've seen is the biggest advantage is we cut down the layer. If you have multiple solutions, and this is with one of the largest private sector banks, we've had a system which is in place, takes care of about 5 systems, integrates into one. The front end is one single interface for their management, our management, and our people to do a real-time monitoring, for example. So there are lots of benefits in consolidation. You have a secondary thing of actually, if you do like for example, a hosted platform, right? We are one of the early adopters of hosted, private hosted or cloud hosting, all in the regulations. And if you look at it from a AWS perspective, there are so many tools that you can use to just allow for some growth, immediate growth for the customers, right? So that's been the consolidation side. We believe that if you have hosting, you have all the products in one stack, allow for seamless kind of experience for the bank as well as their customers. That helps.
Excellent. So looking forward for that. Maybe just to take the moment again, going back to the UPI side, what are your insights on the future? How does it look like? And from the bank's perspective as well as from the customer perspective, if there are any comments on that?
Sure. I mean, UPI is already 84% of the transactions that are happening. Even within a payment gateway, it's about 80% of those. So 20% could be cards, net banking, etc. One of the interesting facts is that NPCI as a regulator along with RBI has been at the forefront of innovation. Not many countries have had this as an option where the regulator, right? The US market doesn't work like that. You always have a startup. A regulator is there to audit and then see if they can launch. Here the regulator is the innovator. So they've been launching new products or features, rather not products, but more features, and those features are trying to be more inclusive. So you've had UPI Lite, you've had UPI Lite X, they're trying to make sure it's a lot more secure. We've seen a lot of security concerns over the years. So I think next 3 to 5 years, UPI should see more and more adoption. It's already at a very extreme number, but there is a little bit of a saturation in one segment, right? Let's say a TPAP, within TPAP you have 80%, 96% through 3 partners. Already NPCI or everybody's trying to see how they can change that. But that will change with the ideas, the new products, new features, people taking up new strategies to go to market, and those should then help the market. But I think UPI is here to stay, it's growing, it's been 2021 onwards, we've seen, I think, 10 times the growth per day basis almost, or more. So yeah, I think UPI is going to be one of the flagship products across, and it'll go international. I think how a Visa Master actually went across and then became a name in the market everywhere, right? I think RuPay should also be there, and UPI will follow suit. So that's my expectation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for being here and sharing these insights with us. So I would just request for the launch of the report, would request the panelists to come on the panel. Yeah.
Well, requesting Mr. Venkatkrishnan V, Chief Information Officer, Karnataka Bank, to kindly come up. Mr. Harvinder Singh, Chief Information Officer, Capital Small Finance Bank. Mr. Tejas Baldev, Sales Director, APAC Cockroach Lab. Yes, I think we have all of them here. And let's begin with the launch. There we go. Well, here we have another special moment as we have all our panelists, our speakers here. One huge round of applause for all of them. Come on, everybody. Congratulations. Fantastic.